Doha, Qatar, a city of glass and steel rising from the desert floor like a mirage that hardened into reality. It is a place where the humidity hangs heavy enough to choke a man, but inside the skyscrapers, the air is always chilled to a crisp 68 degrees. It is a playground for the ultra-wealthy, a diplomatic hub where enemies shake hands in private suites, and a sanctuary for those who believe their money can buy them immunity from history. For Karim al-Zahra, Doha was not just a home, it was a fortress. Known within intelligence circles simply as the Ledger, al-Zahra was a ghost in the international banking system. He did not carry a gun, he carried an encrypted tablet. He did not plant explosives, he planted shell companies in Panama, the British Virgin Islands, and Singapore. He was the primary artery for Hamas's financial infrastructure, moving millions of dollars in charitable donations from sympathetic regimes and laundering them into operational funds for the purchase of dual-use technologies and raw materials. Al-Zahra believed in the invincibility of architecture. He lived in the penthouse of the Royal Horizon, a spire that pierced the clouds. He moved through the city in armored convoys, surrounded by a security detail that consisted of former Eastern Bloc special forces. He believed that the geopolitical complexity of Qatar, hosting both the largest American military base in the region and the political leadership of Hamas, created a force field that no foreign intelligence service would dare to breach. He was wrong. Before we declassify the details of this operation and expose the invisible war being fought in the boardrooms and sky bars of the Middle East, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications. We are peeling back the layers of modern espionage, and you won't want to miss the next file we open. On this particular Tuesday, the sun was setting over the Persian Gulf, painting the water in hues of violet and bruised orange. Al-Zahra stood on the balcony of the Vertex Sky Bar, located on the 55th floor of the Royal Horizon. The bar was an architectural marvel, a cantilevered glass box that hung suspended over the city, offering a view that made human beings look like ants. Al-Zahra adjusted the cuffs of his Italian suit. He was waiting for a meeting that he believed would secure a new pipeline of funding, a digital currency exchange based in South America that could bypass Western sanctions entirely. He checked his watch. He felt powerful. He felt untouchable. What he didn't know was that the bartender polishing a glass 20 feet away was not a bartender. The couple taking selfies in the corner were not tourists. And the elevator he had just taken up had been hacked 3 hours ago. The Vertex Sky Bar was no longer a luxury lounge. It was a containment zone. The glass walls were not there to keep him safe from the wind. They were there to ensure he had nowhere to run. The operation had not begun when he entered the bar. It had begun 6 months earlier, in a windowless room in Tel Aviv, with a single piece of data that shouldn't have existed. To understand the trap, you must first understand the prey. Karim al-Zahra was a man of numbers, and his genius lay in complexity. Intelligence agencies call it layering. If you want to send $1 million from Tehran to Gaza, you don't write a check. You buy gold in Turkey, sell it for euros in Dubai, invest the euros in a construction project in Malaysia, use the future profits of that project to secure a loan in London, and then transfer the loan proceeds through a hawala network that eventually pays out in cash inside the Gaza Strip. Al-Zahra was the conductor of this symphony. He was a man who viewed the global financial system not as a set of rules, but as a series of loopholes waiting to be exploited. He was arrogant, a trait common among men who deal in abstract fortunes. He believed that because he didn't get his hands dirty, he wasn't a combatant. But in the eyes of Mossad, al-Zahra was a center of gravity. In early 2018, Unit 8200, Israel's Signals Intelligence Corps, flagged an anomaly. It was a microscopic discrepancy in the shipping manifests of a legitimate medical supply company operating out of Cyprus. The company was importing MRI machines, but the insurance premiums were being paid by a shell company in the Cayman Islands that had been dormant for 10 years. Mossad analysts pulled the thread. The Cayman company led to a trust in Liechtenstein. The trust was managed by a law firm in Beirut, and the law firm had one primary client, Karim al-Zahra. The file landed on the desk of Avner, a senior case officer in Mossad's financial warfare division, known as Tsil, Shadow. Avner was a man who looked like a university professor but thought like a predator. He understood that eliminating al-Zahra physically was problematic, Doha was a diplomatic minefield. A car bomb or a sniper shot would cause an international incident that Israel could not afford. Furthermore, killing al-Zahra would only create a martyr and a vacancy that would be filled by someone else within a week. The network was resilient. To truly hurt the organization, they didn't need a body. They needed a collapse. They needed to turn al-Zahra from an asset into a liability. They needed to destroy his reputation, drain his accounts, and make it look like he had stolen from his own masters. If al-Zahra died, he was a hero. If al-Zahra was caught stealing from the organization, he was a traitor. And the organization dealt with traitors far more ruthlessly than any intelligence service ever could. "We don't need a bullet," Avner told his team during the initial briefing. "We need a ledger. We are going to balance the books." The plan was codified as Operation Gilded Cage. The objective was to lure al-Zahra into a controlled environment, isolate him from his security, and use a combination of cyber warfare and psychological pressure to dismantle his life in real time, leaving him with no option but to surrender the keys to the kingdom. The team assembled for Operation Gilded Cage was small, precise, and utterly deniable. It consisted of 6 operatives from the Caesarea unit, Mossad's elite special operations division. First, there was Daniel, the field commander. He was a chameleon, fluent in Arabic, French, and English, with the ability to blend into high society settings as easily as a shadow blends into the night. He would play the role of the facilitator. Then there was Nora, a specialist in cyber intelligence and electronic warfare. She wouldn't be behind a keyboard in Tel Aviv. She would be in the field, carrying a device capable of cloning RFID keycards and hijacking local Wi-Fi networks from a distance of 10 meters. Supporting them were Eitan and Yael, surveillance experts who could track a target through a crowded souk or a sterile hotel lobby without ever breaking their cover. The final piece of the puzzle was the legend, the fake identity and backstory that would be used to bait the trap. The team created Apex Global Logistics, a fictional private equity firm supposedly based in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Constructing a cover for this level of operation is not like printing a fake business card. It is world building. The team spent 3 months creating a digital footprint for Apex Global. They built a website that looked professional but discreet. They created fake LinkedIn profiles for its executives, complete with endorsements and work histories backstopped by legitimate-looking shell companies. They even generated fake trading volume on international shipping exchanges. So if al-Zahra's analysts looked deeply, they would see millions of dollars of cargo moving across the Atlantic. The bait was simple. Apex Global claimed to have developed a new method of washing cryptocurrency through South American agricultural exports, a method that was virtually untraceable by the US Treasury. It was exactly the kind of solution al-Zahra was desperate for, as sanctions were tightening around his traditional banking routes. But the bait had to be tasted to be believed. In May, Daniel, posing as Ricardo Silva, a Brazilian-Lebanese investment banker, attended an exclusive economic forum in Istanbul. He knew al-Zahra's lieutenant would be there. It was a soft bump, accidental contact, a shared drink at the hotel bar, a casual conversation about the difficulties of moving capital in the current climate. Daniel dropped the hook. He didn't offer anything. He simply complained about how difficult it was to manage the excess liquidity his firm was generating in Brazil. He mentioned, in passing, a proprietary algorithm they were using. The lieutenant took the bait. 2 weeks later, al-Zahra's security team began pinging the servers of Apex Global Logistics. "They're knocking on the door," Nora announced in the safe house, watching the unauthorized access attempts on her monitor. "Let them in." The trap was set. Now they just had to wait for the target to walk into the cage. The art of the sting lies in letting the mark convince himself. If you push too hard, the target gets suspicious. If you pull away, the target loses interest. You must exist in the twilight zone of availability, exclusive, difficult to reach, but offering a prize too great to ignore. Al-Zahra was cautious. He didn't become the financier of a terror organization by being gullible. He tasked his head of security, a paranoid former Jordanian intelligence officer named Hassan, to vet Apex Global. Hassan was thorough. He checked the company registration in Brazil. Mossad had anticipated this. They had a skyline, a volunteer helper, in Sao Paulo who had inserted physical documents into the municipal registry archives. When Hassan's contact went to the Hall of Records, the paper trail was there, smelling of old ink and bureaucracy. Hassan checked the shipping logs. Mossad hackers had inserted ghost ships into the manifest databases of 3 major ports. The data showed Apex Global moving thousands of tons of soy and timber. Finally, Hassan demanded a proof-of-life transaction. He sent a small test amount, $50,000, through a convoluted network of banks to an Apex-controlled account in Malta, with instructions to launder it and return it to an account in Dubai within 24 hours. This was the critical test. If the money got stuck, or if it was flagged by international regulators, the operation was burned. We have to wash it for real, Avner decided. Mossad didn't use their own channels. Instead, they utilized a network of unwitting intermediaries. They moved the money through a legitimate gambling circuit in Macau, converted it to diamonds in Antwerp, sold the diamonds, and deposited the clean funds into the Dubai account. They did it in 18 hours. When Alzara saw the notification on his secure tablet, funds received, origin obscured, fee deducted, he smiled. It was efficient. It was professional. He instructed Hassan to set up a meeting. He wanted to meet Ricardo Silva in person. He wanted the Vertex protocol, the code name Apex used for their high-level laundering tier. Daniel, posing as Ricardo, played hard to get. He refused to meet in Beirut or Istanbul. Too much heat, he messaged via encrypted courier. I am flying to Doha for the Asian Energy Expo. I have a 2-hour window on Tuesday night. If you want to talk, we talk there. If not, I have other clients. It was a power move. It forced Alzara to accommodate the vendor. It brought the target to the location of the team's choosing. He accepted, Daniel said, reading the decrypted message on his phone. Tuesday, 22 Sidon hours, the Vertex Sky Bar. We're on, Nora said. Time to renovate the hotel. The Royal Horizon Hotel was a fortress of luxury, but like all modern fortresses, it relied on technology, and technology has back doors. 3 days before the meeting, the operational team arrived in Doha. They entered separately, on different flights, using passports from Canada, France, and Argentina. They were tourists, businessmen, consultants. They checked into different hotels, never acknowledging each other in public. Nora checked into the Royal Horizon, room 4208. She wasn't there for the view. Her luggage contained a high-powered transceiver capable of intercepting the local frequencies used by the hotel's security staff. Her first objective was the elevator system. The Vertex Sky Bar was accessible only by 2 dedicated express elevators. If the team could control those lifts, they could control the flow of people. They could ensure that once Alzara went up, no one else could come up behind him. And he couldn't come down until they let him. It took Nora 6 hours to bypass the hotel's firewall. She didn't hack the main server directly. That would trip alarms. Instead, she hacked the smart thermostat system of the building, which shared a maintenance network with the elevator diagnostics. Through the air conditioning, she gained access to the lift controls. I have the vertical transport, she reported via a burst transmission. Meanwhile, Daniel and Aitan were conducting physical reconnaissance of the Sky Bar. They visited the venue on Sunday night. It was sleek, dimly lit, with floor-to-ceiling windows. The layout was open, but there were private pods, semi-enclosed seating areas for VIPs. They identified Pod 4 as the kill zone. It was located at the far end of the cantilever, suspended over the void. It offered maximum privacy, which appealed to Alzara, but it also meant there was only one way in and out. The acoustics are bad, Eitan noted, speaking quietly into his lapel. Glass reflects sound. We need to make sure the conversation stays private. We'll use the ambient audio system, Nora replied from her room. I can loop a low-frequency hum into the speakers near that pod. It will create a sound curtain. Anyone sitting 10 feet away will hear nothing but white noise. The trap was mechanical, digital, and psychological, but the human element was the most volatile. Alzara wouldn't come alone. He would bring bodyguards. Standard procedure for Alzara is 2 men inside, 2 men at the elevator lobby, Daniel briefed the team. We need to neutralize the men at the lobby without causing a scene, and we need to separate Alzara from the men inside. We have a plan for that, Avner said from Tel Aviv. We're going to make them an offer they can't refuse. Or rather, we're going to give them a problem they have to solve. Tuesday night. The air outside was thick, the humidity at 80%. But inside the royal horizon, the marble floors reflected the cool, sterile light of the chandeliers. At 21 hours, the team moved into position. Daniel, dressed in a bespoke navy suit that cost more than a mid-sized car, sat in Pod 4 of the Vertex Sky Bar. He looked every inch the South American financier. On the table in front of him sat a bottle of rare sparkling water and a tablet computer. The screen displayed complex financial modeling, the final visual prop. Yael, dressed in an elegant evening gown, sat at the main bar, her back to the entrance. In her purse was a signal jammer, currently inactive. She was the spotter. Nora was in her room, 3 floors down, staring at a bank of monitors. She had feeds from the hotel security cameras, the elevator cams, and a hidden micro camera Eitan had placed in a potted plant near the elevator lobby. At 21:45, the convoy arrived. 3 black SUVs pulled up to the valet. Karim Al-Zahra stepped out, looking calm, collected. He was flanked by Hassan and 3 other large men. "Target is on the ground," Yael whispered. "Copy," Nora said. "Elevator A is waiting." Al-Zahra and his detail moved through the lobby. They swept the area with their eyes, looking for threats. They saw only tourists and tired businessmen. They approached the express elevators. "Hold the door," Al-Zahra said to Hassan. 2 guards stayed in the lobby. Hassan and 1 other guard entered the elevator with Al-Zahra. As the doors closed, Nora tapped a key on her keyboard. In the elevator control room, the command override engaged. The lift began its ascent, smooth and silent. "Isolate the lobby team," Daniel ordered. Down in the lobby, Eitan walked past the 2 remaining guards. As he passed, he accidentally dropped a small metallic canister into a trash bin 3 meters away. It was a customized device that emitted a concentrated burst of mercaptan, a chemical that smells indistinguishably like a severe gas leak. Within seconds, the smell wafted toward the guards. It was pungent, alarming. A hotel manager, actually a cyanine placed in the hotel's logistics staff, rushed over, looking panicked. "Gas! We have a gas leak! Sirs, you need to clear this area immediately!" The guards hesitated. They had orders to hold the ground. But the smell was overwhelming, and the manager was already ushering guests away. "Move to the perimeter," 1 guard grunted into his radio. "Lobby is compromised. Gas leak." "Copy," Hassan replied from the elevator. "Secure the perimeter. We are nearing the top." The lobby guards moved outside. The bottom of the trap was sealed. Inside the elevator, the numbers ticked up. 40, 50, 55. The doors opened. The Vertex Sky Bar was dimly lit, the city lights glittering below like a carpet of diamonds. Al-Zahra stepped out. He saw Ricardo Silva sitting alone in the corner, bathed in the blue glow of the city. Hassan scanned the room. He saw a woman at the bar, Yael. He saw a bartender. He saw a couple in the corner. Nothing triggered his instincts. "Stay here," Al-Zahra told his guards. "I'll handle this." Hassan nodded. He and the other guard took up positions at the entrance of the bar, crossing their arms. They blocked the exit. Al-Zahra walked toward Daniel. He felt the vibration of the floor, the sheer height of the building. He felt like a king ascending to his throne. Daniel stood up and smiled. A shark smile. "Mr. Al-Zahra," Daniel said, extending a hand. "Welcome to the Vertex. The air is thinner up here, don't you find?" Al-Zahra shook the hand. "The view is worth the lack of oxygen, Mr. Silva. Please sit." Daniel gestured to the chair opposite him. The chair was positioned so Al-Zahra's back was to the glass, floating over the abyss. As Al-Zahra sat, Nora initiated the lockdown protocol. The express elevators were frozen on the 55th floor. Doors open, but controls disabled. The service elevator was disabled. The fire stairs were magnetically locked from the inside. They were 55 stories up, in a glass box, and the world outside had just ceased to exist. "Let's discuss your future," Daniel said, tapping the tablet. Al-Zahra smiled, expecting a business pitch. He didn't realize he was looking at his own execution warrant. The conversation in Pod 4 did not begin with threats. In the world of high-stakes intelligence, you do not start with the knife. You start with the mirror. You show the target exactly who they are, stripping away the layers of self-deception they have built over decades. Daniel, still wearing the mask of Ricardo Silva, tapped the tablet on the table. The screen changed. Gone were the financial projections for South American soy exports. In their place appeared a high-resolution satellite image of a warehouse in the industrial district of Sidon, Lebanon. Alzara frowned, his glass of sparkling water pausing halfway to his lips. What is this? This is not the logistics facility you described in Sao Paulo. No, Daniel said, his voice dropping an octave, shedding the Brazilian accent to reveal a flat, unplaceable international English. This is Warehouse 17 in Sidon. It's where you store the dual-use electronics before they are smuggled into the strip. And this, Daniel swiped the screen, is the bank transfer you authorized 3 days ago to pay for the latest shipment. $4 million, routed through the Greenleaf Charity in Malaysia. Alzara froze. The air in the Vertex skybar was chilled, but he suddenly felt a bead of sweat trickle down his spine. He looked at the man sitting across from him. The charm was gone. The warmth was gone. He was looking into the eyes of a shark that had just smelled blood. "Who are you?" Alzara whispered, his eyes darting toward Hassan, who stood 20 feet away at the entrance, arms crossed, oblivious to the fact that his boss's world was collapsing. "I am the man who controls your elevator," Daniel said calmly. "I am the man who just emptied the lobby of your backup team. And I am the man holding a digital dossier that proves you have been skimming 5% off the top of every transaction you have managed for the last 10 years. Alzara let out a nervous laugh. "That is absurd. I am loyal. My accounts are audited. Audited by men you pay," Daniel countered. "But we audited you, Kareem, and we found the Liechtenstein Trust, the one under your mother's maiden name, the one with $12 million in it, money that belongs to the organization, money you stole." This was the pivot point. Mossad analysts knew that Alzara wasn't an ideologue, he was a profiteer. He served the cause because it was profitable, but he skimmed because he was greedy. And in the organization he worked for, theft wasn't punished with a lawsuit. It was punished with a public execution in a public square. "If I signal my man," Alzara said, his voice trembling slightly, "you will not leave this tower alive." "If you signal your man," Daniel replied, leaning forward, "I press send on this tablet. This dossier goes directly to the encrypted inbox of the Gaza leadership. It goes to the Iranians in Tehran. It goes to every contact you have. You will leave this tower, Kareem, but you won't survive the night. They will hunt you down, and they will hurt you in ways I am not allowed to describe." Alzara looked at the tablet. It was a weapon far more potent than any gun Hassan carried. It was a reputation killer. It was a death sentence wrapped in a PDF. "What do you want?" Alzara asked, his posture collapsing. The arrogance of the penthouse owner vanished, replaced by the desperation of a cornered rat. "I don't want you," Daniel said. "I want the keys." While Daniel dissected Alzara's psyche, the physical security of the operation hung by a thread. Hassan, the head of security, was a veteran. He had survived assassination attempts in Amman and Beirut. His instincts were screaming that something was wrong. He tapped his earpiece. "Lobby, report. Status? Static. Just a wash of white noise." He tried again. "Base, this is lead. Status? Nothing." Nora, sitting in room 4208 3 floors below, was waging an invisible war. Her equipment was flooding the specific frequency band used by Alzara's security team with high-density garbage data. It wasn't just jamming, it was spoofing. To Hassan's radio, it didn't sound like interference. It sounded like the channel was open but empty, a ghost line. Hassan frowned. He took a step toward Pod 4. He could see Alzara sitting there, looking pale. He could see the Brazilian talking intensely. Hassan's hand drifted toward the inside of his jacket, where a compact subcompact pistol was holstered. At the main bar, Yael saw the movement. She was the failsafe. She couldn't draw a weapon. That would turn a covert extraction into a shootout. She had to use social engineering. She stood up, swaying slightly, holding a martini glass. She walked directly across Hassan's path, intercepting him just as he passed the bar. "Excuse me," she said, her voice slurred, pretending to be intoxicated. She stumbled, spilling her drink onto Hassan's shoes and trousers. "Oh my God, I am so clumsy. I am so sorry." Hassan recoiled, looking down at his ruined Italian leather shoes. "Watch yourself," he snapped, distracted for a crucial second. "Let me help," Yael insisted, grabbing his arm to steady herself, effectively pinning his gun arm to his side. "I have napkins." In that moment of physical contact, Yael slid a small adhesive patch onto the back of Hassan's jacket, just below the collar. It was a resonance conductor. "Get off me!" Hassan shoved her away gently but firmly. He looked back at Pod 4. Daniel saw the interaction. He knew they had bought seconds, not minutes. He looked at Al-Zahra. "Your dog is getting restless," Daniel said. "Wave him off, now, or the dossier sends." Al-Zahra looked up. He met Hassan's eyes. Hassan was waiting for a sign, a nod, a blink, a hand gesture that meant threat. Al-Zahra raised his hand and gave a dismissive wave, a gesture that said, "I am busy, back off." It was the gesture of a master to a servant, but behind it was the terror of a man with a gun to his head. Hassan hesitated. He saw the wave. He saw his boss apparently engaged in a heated negotiation. He looked at his wet shoes. He stepped back to his post, frustrated but obedient. The trap held. "The keys," Daniel repeated. "We are going to zero out the accounts, all of them. The operational funds, the reserve capital, and yes, your personal retirement fund in Liechtenstein." "You can't," Al-Zahra whispered. "The authentication, it requires a physical token. It's in my safe in the penthouse." "Don't lie to me, Karim," Daniel said softly. "This is the 21st century. You don't use physical tokens anymore. You use biometric validation on that tablet right there. You are the bank. Wherever you go, the ledger goes." This was the intelligence breakthrough that had launched the operation. Mossad had learned that Al-Zahra had consolidated the network's access protocols into a single, heavily encrypted app on his personal device, secured by a complex biometric sequence: fingerprint, retinal scan, and voice phrase. It was designed for convenience, allowing him to move money from anywhere in the world. Now, it was his vulnerability. "Open the app," Daniel ordered. Al-Zahra's hand shook as he reached for his tablet. He hesitated. "If I do this," Al-Zahra said, "I am dead anyway. When the money vanishes, they will kill me." "Not necessarily," Daniel countered. "We have prepared a cover story for you. A cyber attack, a state-level intrusion. We are planting digital footprints that point to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. We are going to make it look like your friends in Tehran decided to cash you out. It will be confusing enough to buy you time to run." It was a lie, of course. The digital footprints would be messy, ambiguous. Hamas would suspect everyone, but they would blame Al-Zahra first. But a drowning man will grab the blade of a sword if he thinks it can pull him to shore. Al-Zahra pressed his thumb to the screen. Access granted. He held the tablet up to his face. The retinal scanner flashed red, then green. Identity confirmed. Voice phrase, the app requested. Al-Zahra leaned in. "The desert never remembers the rain," he whispered. System unlocked. The screen populated with numbers that would make a Wall Street banker dizzy. Accounts in 6 jurisdictions, $300 million in liquid assets. "Transfer it all," Daniel said. "To the routing numbers I am sending you now." Daniel's phone buzzed. He forwarded a packet of data to Al-Zahra's tablet. These were black hole accounts, staging points set up by Mossad fronts in hostile jurisdictions. Once the money hit those accounts, it would be fractured into thousands of microtransactions, washed through the global banking system, and effectively deleted from Hamas's ledger. Al-Zahra began the process. His fingers moved sluggishly. He was dismantling his life's work. "Faster," Daniel urged. Hassan is checking his watch. One by one, the balances dropped to zero. The Liechtenstein Trust, the Dubai Operational Fund, the Malaysian Charity. "It's done," Al-Zahra said, pushing the tablet away as if it were radioactive. "It's all gone." Daniel checked his own device. Nora confirmed the receipt. "Funds secured, we are liquid." "Now," Al-Zahra said, "let me leave." "Not yet," Daniel said. "We have to ensure you don't make a phone call the moment we step into the elevator." The money was gone, but the physical extraction remained. They were still trapped in a glass box, 55 floors up, with 4 armed men between them and freedom. "The gas leak is about to get worse," Daniel said. Down in the lobby, the manager, the skyline, triggered the building's main fire alarm. Not the localized alarm used earlier, but the general evacuation signal. Sirens began to wail throughout the royal horizon. Strobes flashed in the vertex sky bar. Whoop, whoop, evacuate, evacuate. The sudden chaos was the cover. Hassan moved immediately. He rushed toward the pod. "Sir, fire alarm. We need to move. The elevators might shut down." Daniel stood up, buttoning his jacket. "A pleasure doing business, Kareem. I assume you will handle your security?" Al-Zahra looked at Hassan, then at Daniel. He realized that if he screamed spy, if a firefight broke out, the police would come. The authorities would seize his tablet. They would see the empty accounts. The questions would start immediately. He needed to disappear, not be detained. "It is fine, Hassan," Al-Zahra said, his voice hollow. "Mr. Silva and I are finished. We evacuate." "Sir, the elevators are locked," Hassan shouted over the siren. "We have to take the stairs." This was Nora's doing. She had kept the express elevators frozen. "I have a private route," Daniel said calmly. "Service elevator. My team arranged it." He looked at Hassan. "You can come with us, or you can wait for the firemen." Hassan didn't trust Silva, but he trusted the fire alarm even less. "Lead the way." Daniel led the group, Al-Zahra, Hassan, the second guard, and Yael, toward the service corridor behind the bar. Aitan had already picked the lock on the service bay. Inside, the freight elevator was waiting. Nora had overridden the fire recall protocol for this specific car. They piled in. The ride down was tense, the silence heavy despite the muffled sirens outside. "You are calm for a man in a burning building," Hassan noted, staring at Daniel. "I have insurance," Daniel replied dryly. When the doors opened, they weren't in the lobby. They were in the sub-basement, the loading dock. The humid air of Doha rushed in, smelling of diesel and sea salt. A white delivery van was idling. Aitan was behind the wheel. "This is where we part ways," Daniel said to Al-Zahra. "I suggest you run, Kareem. The dossier, I set a timer. If you don't check in with a specific server in 24 hours, it sends automatically. You have 1 day to find a hole deep enough to hide in." It was another lie. The dossier had already been leaked anonymously to a journalist in Beirut, timed to publish the next morning. But hope is a powerful tool for manipulation. "Go," Al-Zahra said to Hassan. "Get the car." As Hassan moved to secure their own vehicles, Daniel and Yael stepped into the van. The sliding door slammed shut. The van peeled out of the loading dock, merging into the chaotic traffic of a city evacuating a false emergency. Extraction is the most dangerous phase of any operation. The adrenaline fades and mistakes happen. But Mossad operates on redundancy. The van drove 2 miles to a shopping mall parking structure. Under the cover of concrete pillars, the team abandoned the vehicle. They switched to 3 separate rental cars that had been parked there 2 days prior. They shed their covers. Daniel removed the suit jacket, put on a casual polo shirt and a baseball cap. Yael wiped off her makeup, put on glasses and a hijab. They ceased to be Ricardo Silva and his associate. They became tourists, ending their vacation. Nora, still in her hotel room, executed the final phase of the digital cleanup. She wiped the logs of the elevator hack. She deleted the camera footage from the 55th floor for the last 2 hours, replacing it with a loop of an empty bar. She purged the history of the gas leak alert from the building management system. Then she walked out of her room, took the stairs down to the lobby, and joined the evacuating guests. She blended into the crowd, a confused woman clutching her purse. By 02's out hours, the entire team was at Hamad International Airport. They were on different flights. Daniel was headed to Bangkok, Yael to Istanbul, Nora to Frankfurt. They didn't speak. They didn't look at each other. They passed through immigration, their false passports holding up against the scrutiny of the border guards. Back at the Royal Horizon, the fire department declared the building safe. No fire was found, no gas leak was detected. It was logged as a system malfunction. Kareem Al-Zahra sat in the back of his armored SUV, speeding toward a private airfield. He was trying to call his contacts in Tehran, trying to explain, trying to get ahead of the storm. But his calls weren't going through. His SIM card had been deactivated. He looked at his tablet. The battery was dead. He was a man with $300 million of missing money, no friends, and a head full of secrets that were now worthless. He realized, with a sinking heart, that the Israelis hadn't just stolen the money. They had stolen his life. The fallout was not an explosion. It was an implosion. 2 days later, a Lebanese newspaper published a report detailing the financial corruption of a high-ranking Hamas financier. It included screenshots of bank transfers, account numbers, and emails. The article claimed that Karim al-Zahra had been embezzling funds for years and was planning to defect to the West. Hamas leadership in Gaza was furious. They froze all operations connected to al-Zahra. They launched an internal investigation, tearing apart their own financial infrastructure looking for the rot. The paranoia paralyzed them. Donors stopped sending money, fearing it would be stolen. The supply lines for dual-use materials dried up for months because the bills weren't being paid. Al-Zahra was never seen publicly again. Intelligence rumors suggest he made it to South America, living under a new name, constantly looking over his shoulder, not for Mossad, but for his own former brothers. In Tel Aviv, there was no champagne celebration. Avner sat in his office, reviewing the final report of Operation Gilded Cage. The $300 million never entered Israeli accounts. That would be theft. Instead, through a complex web of automated transfers, the money had been donated anonymously to 4 major international humanitarian aid organizations, specifically funds designated for non-political medical relief in conflict zones. Mossad had taken money destined for missiles and turned it into vaccines and bandages. It was the ultimate irony. File closed, Avner typed into the secure terminal. The operation demonstrated the changing nature of modern warfare. The vertex of power had shifted. You didn't need to drop a bomb on a building to destroy it. You just needed to hack the elevator, freeze the assets, and whisper the right lie into the right ear. The Vertex skybar is still there, hanging over Doha. Businessmen still meet there to discuss millions. They drink sparkling water and look at the view, feeling like masters of the universe. But sometimes, if you listen closely to the ambient noise, you can almost hear the ghost of a frequency, a digital echo of the night. The glass fortress became a prison. That is the story of the Vertex Protocol. A mission executed without a single shot fired, yet it caused more damage than an airstrike. Do you think financial warfare is an ethical tool in counterterrorism? Or does stealing assets, even from an enemy, cross a line? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more declassified stories about the invisible war, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. The next file is already on the desk, and trust me, you won't believe where it takes us.